Trudeau, it was amazing. It was
It
one of the
rocked.
funniest things I've seen in Canadian politics.
Yeah, really quickly, there's no way Pierre Poilievre doesn't know how funny he is. Hello and welcome back, viewers. My name is Roberto Wakerl Cruz, and this is Nico Johnson joining us from a library. Welcome back to This Week in Canada. Welcome. This is episode 9. We're really doing it, Nico.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone. I can't believe we're now on our 10th episode. Unfortunately, Bobby and I couldn't be together. I had to go to Toronto for the Conservative leadership debate, which soon turned into a fireside chat as Leslyn Lewis had an ear infection and Peter MacKay stood down in solidarity with that ear infection, apparently. But, you know, I got to see Derek Sloan, I got to see Erin O'Toole, got to meet their campaign team. You know what? Say what you will about those two guys, but they're very, very nice. I thought they were deeply pleasant. Sloan didn't say anything dodgy. It was great.
Yeah, so really quickly, I guess we'll touch on that. I mean, we had a pretty massive week again. I know we keep saying it every week that it was a massive week, but seriously, again, we had 2 testimonies, massive testimonies, the just like Hiroshima and Nagasaki of testimonies in Canada, you know, that's nuclear bombs, basically, with the Kielburger brothers and Trudeau's testimony yesterday. But really quickly, before we get into that, you are not here. Again, like you said, you're in Toronto because you went to go to the debates, which Peter MacKay, what happened? Yeah.
He says that it was out of respect for Leslyn Lewis standing down, and he said he was actually throwing a bit of shade at Erin O'Toole. But he said, well, you know, Leslyn Lewis is a vital member of this Conservative leadership debate. We can't do it without her. I say we postpone. Now, no one was particularly happy about this. Firstly, the Independent Press Gallery, who, by the way, went to a great expense. This isn't the Press Gallery of Canada. These are like independent media, like the Post Millennial, who's been shut out of the Press Gallery because, you know, we don't take Trudeau bailout money. Right. And as a result of that, because we don't take bailout money, we're not that wealthy. It's difficult to do that sort of thing. And then Peter MacKay just packed up and left. So Andrew Lawton, who ran the whole thing, seemed to me to be fairly upset about it. But he was obviously very professional. But Leslyn Lewis, his campaign manager, or her campaign manager, came to the event, and he said, and I quote, "It was not necessary, full stop." So, you know, I don't know what to take with that. But I think Peter MacKay's always been a bit weird about independent Conservative media.
It is a little weird. It was because, you know, it makes sense that Leslyn Lewis couldn't be there. There's a, you know, pandemic going on, and if your, you know, immune system's being weird, you don't want to go out in public. The Peter MacKay dropping out thing, I didn't see that one coming, especially after when they essentially canceled the debates because no one really wanted to see Erin O'Toole and Derek Sloan duke it out and do some fisticuffs one-on-one. But, so the debate was changed into a fireside chat, where it's basically one-on-one with Andrew Lawton. And Peter MacKay still, even though the debate was canceled, didn't do that either because, again, kind of in solidarity.
Right. Peter MacKay lives in Toronto. You know? Like, it's so easy for him. Apparently he lived 10 minutes away from the venue, and he couldn't just, you know, go and attend it. So I was annoyed because I flew from Montreal to go and watch the bloody thing. And, you know, one of the most important people there didn't turn up. So what can you do? But on the whole, it wasn't overly interesting. I think the fireside chats are actually more revealing than debates itself. Because in debates, it's so stupid. You have like 60 seconds to slag off Peter MacKay or Erin O'Toole, right? You know, whoever you prefer. So, I think it went pretty well. I mean, you watched it, right, Bob?
I did. And, I like the fireside chat too, which I think is more effective than the debates as well. Especially Andrew Lawton's really good at interviewing, right? Like he presses people. He doesn't let it go out of like. Obviously, no one's unhinged in the group, but he really was a good interviewer and really gets down to like the platforms, presses, but isn't like rude about it. It was really enjoyable. Again, you're there. You're still there. I don't know why you're still there. It was a one-day event.
All this stuff pales in comparison to what happened this week with the Kielburgers,
right?
And finally Justin Trudeau and his Chief of Staff, Katie Telford. The Conservative leadership debate forgive, I was there. It was quite boring. Let's not, pick any bones about it or whatever however the expression goes. The real interesting thing that happened this week was the testimony of the Kielburgers, Justin Trudeau and Katie Telford, and one blissful, I think it was 47 seconds, of Pierre Poilievre just slamming everything onto the table, taking control of the meeting for 42 seconds and pummeling Trudeau. It was amazing. It was one of the funniest things I've seen in Canadian politics.
Yeah, really quickly, there's no way Pierre Poilievre doesn't know how funny he is, because he is funny, because he's like a kind of rude, he's like a policy wonk, you know what I mean? He's a real like stickler, but he has this kind of cutting humor where he granted himself power. You guys got to see that clip. Maybe James could pull it up here. But yeah, anyway, it was one of the most fun days in Canadian politics that we've had probably since I've been following it.
Pierre Poilievre's best friend in Parliament is Michael Cooper, and he's like an Albertan MP. He's also similar to Poilievre in some, he's got a monotone voice. He's obviously a policy wonk. Like he prefers the academic side of politics rather than all these sort of the glamorous bits.
Right.
But you look at Pierre Poilievre and Michael Cooper, and I love Pierre Poilievre and Michael Cooper, and I think it's important to say that. But they are just two nerds who have made the most of this world. I like it. It's kind of.
I didn't want to say nerds, but yeah, exactly.
Two guys, I hate to say it, probably had a kind of a tough time in high school. But I tell you what, they must look back at those high school bullies and say, "Look at me now." You see what I'm doing? The Conservatives love me. It's amazing, and the way he just rinsed Trudeau was brilliant.
It was great. The first one happened, I think, was it this week with the Kielburger testimony, right?
Yeah, that was earlier this week.
That was on Monday or Tuesday. That was so the Kielburgers, who I've never actually seen speak before, do everything together. They hold hands. They tuck each other into bed. They testify together.
That Canada is not a serious democracy.
Boo. Yeah, true. It's true, because there'd be inconsistencies, right? You would get one to screw up, and then the other one wouldn't say the same thing. It would be fun to watch. But that one, while it was interesting, and we learned a few things, namely that Trudeau's mom got paid more than we thought, got refunded cash, and several other things. The real fun time was yesterday, Thursday, when Justin Trudeau testified for 90 minutes. What a ball! So, for those of you who didn't watch, it was basically sort of what you would expect. It was the finance committee over like a Zoom meeting, kind of like this, and it was Justin Trudeau in his little office with a bunch of books behind him, like a loser, and he obviously dodged, ducked, dipped, dived, and dodged around as many questions as he could. He was clearly, I think, pretty well vetted. His answers sounded good, but really, once you kind of picked apart what he was saying, and this is why, again, Pierre Poilievre and I think Michael Barrett are very good, really effective, because they can find these kind of like, wait, but you said this, that doesn't make sense with this. And then eventually, Justin Trudeau just kind of threw Bill Morneau under the bus.
Oh, you could hear the sound of him hitting the pavement. It was so lovely. Like, it was eventually, great. He knew that someone is going to have to fall for this scandal. And if it's not Trudeau, then it has to be Morneau. But here's what I found interesting about the testimony. Firstly, with the Kielburgers as well, you can always measure how nervous someone is in one of these testimonies by how much water they drink. So the Kielburgers went through 4 or 5 glasses in 2 hours. That's not normal, unless they came really dehydrated. And and Trudeau also didn't have any water, so you can tell he's kind of used to this. But some people really did get under his skin. Pierre Poilievre clearly got under his skin.
Clearly,
I think Michael Barrett got under his skin. The NDP ethics critic, who is a guy called
Charlie Angus. Yeah, Angus, I don't mind Charlie Angus. He's like what you would expect of like a logical, he's not like Jagmeet Singh where he's like kind of a dumbass. He's like an old labor-focused NDP kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like, I like those guys because they're sincere. They're more sincere than they don't pander than the TikTok ones. Get off TikTok, Jagmeet. You're like 40-something. Weird. Really weird. Anyway,
but I tell you what,
go ahead.
There was the most revealing part about Trudeau's testimony. and we have to give credit where credit's due. Just for PR management, I think Trudeau did a pretty good job of answering questions.
Sure.
And just like defending himself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, thank you, Trudeau, for just having proper lighting and like a background behind you. Unlike the Kielburgers,
who look like vampires.
At one point, he said, "If this was really happening inside my charity, my face would be pale." Completely pale.
It was hilarious. It was a great moment because they both looked like Twilight vampires. They were both sparkling, so bright. And another weird thing I noticed, for those of you, I guess you guys had to have watched this to really know what we're talking about here, if you're still listening. But
check out all the clips on our Twitter. So
on our all our clips are on the Twitter. Yeah. Oh shoot, what was I about to say? Anyway, I kind of just forgot what I was about to say. They were really uncomfortable, really weird. Going into it, though, this is something that happened because there was 2 testimonies in 1 week. The finance chair, his name is MP Wayne Easter, I believe. He's a Liberal MP. So during the Kielburger testimony, if you watched it, it did seem like Wayne Easter was kind of protecting a little bit. I mean, it wasn't blatant, but it certainly did seem like the way he was using language that
bizarre that they have a Liberal MP chairing this. I mean, the fact is the matter. This guy has to be non-partisan, right?
Yeah.
But he's a Liberal MP, and he, as Pierre Poilievre said, actually, he must have had extraordinary pressure placed on him by his boss.
Yeah.
Like imagine if your boss was putting extraordinary pressure on you to protect him from like a criminal scandal. So like he must have been, even if he didn't take it fully on board, and I think it was a bit unfair of Poilievre to accuse him of having a huge Liberal bias.
You thought so?
Yeah, but even if he isn't, even if he wants to be non-partisan, by nature of him being a Liberal MP, there has to be some bias there. And I don't understand why they didn't get a judge to do this sort of thing,
Yeah, really, I know. Well, to be fair, because I'm a fair guy, you know that, Nico. I thought he did a much better job in the second one, and I think he was conscious of that. I think he did kind of get called out, and he was like, okay, you know what? Maybe if you guys are going to be dicks about this, I'll try to be more neutral. And with the PM, he did better. Way more impartial than oh God, what's her name? Julie Zerowicz, my new least favorite MP. I thought unbearable. You are our idiot of the week. MP Julie Zerowicz.
No, it's terrible. She just has again, I understand Canada's a very diverse country, has lots of weird last names. My one, I wish my name was a bit weirder. But having 13 consonants in a row and that being your last name, come on, give us a break.
You're gonna offend our huge Polish viewing block. If you don't know who that is, she's this MP she's on the finance committee, right? So the finance committee made up of every party. They had Réal Fortin, who's the Bloc Québécois guy, who, by the way, just swore in French on the stream when he got told the stream wasn't working. Love that moment. Was just kind of like, tabernacle de colis. It's just like, anyway. But the one of the Liberals on board was Julie Zerowicz, who was just, what is she trying to get into cabinet? I don't really understand. She was very clearly just sniffing Trudeau's farts. Sorry for the imagery.
Constituents, I'd be incredibly pissed off with that. Because at least give the facade of professionality, This was just again, it's I hate how politics sometimes seems like sport. And you just support your team no matter what. Canada would be a much richer country if the own side, if Liberals, who view themselves as Liberals, took some time just to say, actually, what Trudeau did here was unethical, and he should have to answer for his questions. But we learnt quite a lot in the Kielburger, testimony. Yeah. There were clearly some loopholes. They didn't seem to train very well. Trudeau, as I was saying earlier, did a bit better. He was more professional. He has to answer questions from Poilievre every week, and he has done since 2015. So by 2020, he knows how to, or at least he has an idea of how to combat it. But here's the thing, and here's the most important thing that we learned, right? And it all has to do with the dates. And there is a period of 20 weeks where, according to Trudeau, the civil service, the bureaucracy who, facilitates programs, went rogue. 2 weeks, 20 days,
Yep.
And that doesn't happen. If anyone has any idea about government, there was some direction from the Prime Minister's office to tell the bureaucracy, the civil service, to create this deal with the We charity. There was some form of direction. Yeah. Now, Trudeau has denied this. He said there wasn't. And when people actually questioned him about it, and Katie Telford, who went after Trudeau, was very defensive as well. And so as I was saying, Trudeau was very, very cagey. And I think here lies the rub of this scandal. And if we can figure out who exactly, and we can find proof that the PMO directed the bureaucracy to set up this contract, then there is clearly something more than failing to recuse himself from the decision. And I think 100%. We all know that. It's just a matter of finding proof. And if that is found, then I think, I think Bill Morneau is going to resign probably in sometime in the next 2 weeks. But that specific detail will put Trudeau, the Prime Minister, into a very, very difficult position.
Agreed. I can't remember exactly who the line of questioning came from, either Barrett or Poilievre, but they brought up a really good point. Who is accountable here? Because we don't. If you're not at fault for this, someone has to be. It had to have been. There's something went wrong somewhere along the way, and what you're saying doesn't really add up.
They would rather not resign or not throw anyone under the bus than to blame the entire civil service for going rogue on $1 billion contract for 2 weeks. So you'd rather have an entire issue with the civil service, which would need, if Trudeau's telling the truth here, then I suspect he would have to remedy the entire civil service for making decisions like that without any coordinates from elected officials. That would be an issue with our democracy if that were to happen. It didn't happen, and Trudeau is just trying to protect his skin. So, I really don't know what's going to happen about this. I wrote an article for an American magazine, and one of the lines, or one of the arguments was that basically, as is per Liberal tradition, neither Morneau nor Trudeau will resign. It now looks pretty clear that Morneau is going to resign.
Yeah, has to.
Crossed. And maybe this will bring down the government. There's something that feels really barbed about this. And if you look at the opinion polls, despite not having a leader, despite having an incredibly acrimonious leadership competition, the Conservatives are only 1 point behind. Come August,
it's crazy.
If we can keep this up, if Poilievre, who is the de facto leader of the Conservative Party right now, if he can keep up this pressure, then I think the Conservatives can win an election. Yeah. I really think this is a wonderful opportunity. And, guys, you're all voting. Some of you will be Conservative members. Think about that. Think about the fact that we are going to have an election in the next year and that the Trudeau government is damaged and we need someone who can beat him.
Absolutely. This has actually been really good timing for the Conservative Party. It seems like the scandal, which no one really saw coming, it just came in with the flood of different funds and grants totally unnecessary. Just threw it in there with everything else because he was just handing out money. Out of nowhere, the next day, everything starts to fall into place. It's actually whipped the Conservative Party, I think, into form. I got to say, there are a few more stars on the Conservative Party than maybe I used to give credit for. We already knew Poilievre was kind of already if there was a Conservative all-star team, that Poilievre would have definitely been the leader. Michael Barrett, that's what I was about to say.
Look at Michael Barrett's resume. He's an ex-military, he's a veteran. He's just, I spoke to him and on the Talking Politics podcast, which you can check out. And he's a really nice guy and he's clever. And he's certainly, I'd feel very comfortable having, Canada in the hands of someone like Michael Barrett. He's just a good, principled man. And, again, the Conservative leadership contest has been pretty brutal. There's been, a lot of mudslinging. But all of them, with perhaps one exception, are fairly good, fairly good leaders and would make good prime ministers. And, it's just going to be a breath of fresh air. The Conservative Party, they're kind of boring. Conservatives are kind of boring. But holy shit, would I, cut off my leg to have a boring prime minister right now? And, I was looking at, again, I tweeted out an article or something, and one of my followers said, this is really going to turn bad for Trudeau when he stops giving up CERB, when he is asked to stop giving up CERB, and then we really begin to feel what he has done to the economy.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think there's going to be a switch, and the switch is called tax season 2021. And it's really going to piss a lot of people off when they realize, oh, I wasn't just...
Yeah, Texas, they spent $250,000 looking in, and I quote, looking in to a home tax, which would tax you on all the gains. So usually, if you sell a house now, you don't get taxed on the profit you make. They would tax on the profit. It's a horrible thing to do. Really horrible thing to do. Because that's where most people's wealth comes from. And then they had to come out and say, we weren't even looking into it, despite having a quote which says, we are looking into it. So, and you know, this is just, and it's not, I don't think it's going to happen anymore because it was so unpopular. But it's going to come. It's going to be a pretty horrible decade as a result of this spending. And we need to be prepared for that. And you know, we need a Conservative government who at least is honest about that.
Yeah.
Who will say, we're going to cut down social spending and we're probably going to have to raise taxes. But you know what? Your children will thank us. You know?
Yeah, exactly. We need a guy, and I really wish Polyev or someone, Michael Barrett, one of these guys. There's a few of them, actually. I can't remember all of their names, but there's a bunch of stars in the Conservative Party that could take over. We need someone that's hard on policy, exactly like you said. Honest, we're going to have to raise taxes, but it's for the good of the country's future, really. I mean, like, it is, unfortunately. And we got put here by a doofus who just spent like it was on his dad's credit card, like what he was used to, and now we're gonna have to do it. So
anyway, guys, thank you so much. This has been episode 9, I think, possibly, of Talking Politics. It's been great fun. Again, it's been very heavy over the last few weeks, and I do apologise for that. I think possibly we're coming to the end of that now, unless more revelations emerge. But for the first time in a while, and I think Roberto would agree with me here, I'm beginning to feel positive about Canadian politics. I think we're reaching the corner. And you know what? We're going to be covering it the entire time. So do tune in. We really do appreciate you guys. Give us a thumbs up. Shoot us a comment. And do remember, please do remember to subscribe because we need those clicks. So thanks so much.
Thanks again, everybody. Have a good week. See you next week.